We'll talk today about the nutrition label and how I use that as a physician and as a nutritionist to make my food choices in order to avoid weight gain or for weight loss when I advise my patients. Most prepackaged foods here in the United States and in many places in the world come with this nutrition facts information. And it lists a bunch of numbers and items, and we're going to discuss today 7 rules that I make use on a regular basis to use this information to my advantage and to my patient's advantage to lose weight or to keep the weight from going up. Rule number 1, the first thing I'm looking at is at the trans fat section under the total fats. I want that food to have 0 trans fats, and if not, I'm going to toss it away. They are bad for you. For me, this is a deal breaker. On the ingredient list, sometimes trans fats are hidden under the name of partially hydrogenated oils. These have been phased out for the most part, but sometimes you still run across those. So it's good to know about, especially in countries where this is not the case. Second rule, you may think it's calories, but I'm not there yet. The second deal breaker for me is this. If the ingredient list is awfully long and it has names of ingredients that I need a degree in organic chemistry to be able to read them, I'm going to toss it. I took this in the cookie section at the grocery store. This is the ingredient list for a cake. And just look at the amount of different ingredients, way too many. And so this is another deal breaker. I'm not saying never touch this, but this is not a food that I would routinely have for myself or for my family. One exception to this rule that fewer ingredients is better is when we talk about milk substitutes. In those cases, few ingredients is not always better. For example, almond milk. If you only see almonds and water, that's all you get. Not to say that almonds are not good for you, but if you get another milk substitute such as soy milk, for example, the silk variety, where you also have vitamin B12, vitamin D, calcium added in adequate amounts, that drink is a much more valuable drink, especially for those who are on a vegetarian diet. Rule number 3, we finally got to the calories, and indeed, in big font, at least here in the US, right at the top, you see how many total calories that food has. How many calories do you guys think are there in this? Take a minute and think. You see this big number here, 140 calories. Here's my question. Is this the number of calories in the whole can or not? 140 calories. It's not. It's actually per serving. You see here, per serving. And this thing has 9 servings. So in total, if you were to eat the whole can, you would get over 1,300 calories, not just 140. So this is extremely important to remember. All numbers, not just the calories, all these numbers that you see down here on the label, you see here, this amount per serving. This is crucial to understand and to remember. I hope you all know this, and if you don't, pay attention to this. Every number that you see here, you have to see how many servings you have in that container. Don't eat the whole thing and imagine that that's all you get, okay? That's important. Some manufacturers practice what I call label honesty, and in this case, this ice cream shows both the amount per serving and the amount per container. You see, because you have 3 servings there, the math doesn't add up quite precisely. There is a little bit of rounding going on there, but it's good enough for our purposes. Rule number 4, check total fats. How much fat is in that food? Here you have 4 grams of fat. Why fat and not sugar? Well, for one thing, 1 gram of fat has how many calories? 9. And 1 gram of sugar or carbs has 4 calories or kilocalories. So fat is more than twice as rich in calories. And there's other aspects of this that made me put fat first that I don't have time to discuss today. In any case, what is too much when it comes to fat? Well, for me, per serving, 15 grams of fat is about as much as I want to go. I'll give you an example here. This is a soy butter label. It has 200 calories. A serving is 2 tablespoons, and you get 15 grams of fat. If you look at the saturated fat, it's 3, trans is 0. Where is the rest to 15? Well, the regular nutrition label does not list the other types of fat that are actually quite helpful and healthy. I'm going to show you a variant of the nutritional label at the end that I recommend you try, where you will see those things listed there. Suffices to say here, though, that these 15 grams of fat provide almost 20% of the daily caloric intake for an average adult. But attention, that is an average adult who does not try, he's not trying to lose weight. If you are on a weight loss diet and you're trying to eat 1,300 calories a day, this number could easily go into the 30 to 40% for one serving. And of course, if you eat more, then the whole thing falls apart. But having said that, this type of plant food that is rich in fat is really healthy, in my opinion. You get not just healthy fats, you get a good amount of protein, you have very little to no sugar added. In this case, you got 2 grams of sugar. And importantly, like we said in the beginning, there's no trans. Rule number 5, check total carbs. We finally got to the carbs. In my book, carbs are not making you gain fat like crazy unless you eat too much of it. Here's where you see the carbs. You have 46 grams of carbs here in this food item. And then it's broken down, and this is very important for you to understand. In the total carbs, you find fiber, which is 7 grams. You find total sugars. These are sugars that may be naturally present in that food. But also importantly, and this more recent iteration of the food label includes specifically a line here that shows how many added sugars, how many grams of added sugar are in that particular food. This is extremely important to look for and to understand. I list here 4 types of cereal: Kix, multigrain Cheerios, Cocoa Puffs, and the Quaker oatmeal. All of them have a relatively similar amount of carbs, 34 there, 32 over here, 31 here, and less here, 27. But check the fiber. In the oats, you got 4 grams of fiber per serving. Serving is half a cup here. This one is a whole cup. So that's the other thing to keep in mind, the volume. You see here, this by half cup, you get 4 grams of fiber. Here, you eat a whole cup and you only get, what, 2 grams, less the amount for half of the volume. Watch what happens with the added sugar. You have 4 grams and 4 here. You get 8 grams over here. All of it is added sugar. 12 grams over in the Cocoa Puffs, and almost nothing here. You have a 0 added sugar, 1 gram of sugar, which is naturally present in the oats. So this is a very good example of how it pays to check the label and make good choices. Importantly, when we talk about sugars, we have to recognize hidden sugar, or the many names sugar comes in these labels. And I'm going to give you a simple rule of thumb here. Any ingredient that ends with a suffix "ose", O-S-E, fructose, dextrose, again fructose, lactose, maltose, sucrose, glucose, all of these are sugars, different types of sugar, but they're all simple sugars. The other thing is when you see nectar, syrup, sweetener, those are also different names for sugars. And the reason manufacturers like to use all these variants and mix different types of sugar is not just flavor and taste, but also to try to hide it. You have to understand that on the ingredient list, the order of the ingredients goes by the amount present in that food, from the most to the least abundant. And it's not to their advantage to list sugar as the first ingredient, because people would freak out. So what they do, instead of adding one type of sugar, they break it down into 1, 2, 3, 4 different types of, or 3 in this case, types of sugar, which allows them to kick it down the list further where it's kind of more hidden. Same story here in this maple bacon. I don't recommend it, but just for the sake of illustration, I mean, the fact that it says maple here should raise some concern, but because they put it as a brown sugar, maple sugar, and white sugar, 3 different types of sugar, they allow them to put other ingredients first, and this comes down the line, giving the impression that it's not as bad. Same story here, the type of ice cream. Watch this. You got sugar, tapioca syrup, you have corn syrup and other things. So you see how sugar is hidden. Ketchup has a fair amount, 4 grams of added sugar per tablespoon. But again, the same trick is used in the ingredient. When you look at it and say, hey, what's in this thing? Well, tomato, not too bad, vinegar, and then you get the corn syrup, fructose, high fructose corn syrup, and corn syrup split so that it can be listed further down the line. Number 6. You want to check the sodium amount. This comes here above the carbs. You want the item to have less than 200 milligrams of sodium. Why sodium? Sodium has no calories, right? Well, if you think about it, sodium holds onto water. And if somebody has heart disease or venous insufficiency or other conditions, kidney disease, they could experience edema, they could experience water retention, and the more salt they eat, the more water they retain in their lower extremities and elsewhere, and that makes them weigh more on the scale. And so this could undermine somebody's efforts to lose weight if they go heavy on the salt. Number 7, last but not least, how many servings are you actually eating? This is very important because it doesn't matter how versed and diligent you check all these numbers and you understand them. If you're going to eat the whole thing and not keep this under control, you're not going to fare much better than somebody who doesn't even read the nutrition label. And this goes both ways. If it says one serving, like in this case, has 240 calories and one serving is 1.5 cups, you don't have to eat 1.5 cups. If half a cup is fine for you, just stick with that, you know. Those are average in the population who does not need to lose weight. Quick question for you related to this. Why do you think most foods in the produce section have no nutrition label on them? The cucumber, there's a barcode, but there's no nutrition label on it. Does it have to do with the fact that cucumbers comes in all sizes and it's kind of hard to do, or is there something more to it? I'm going to suggest there's something more to it, and that is in the case of produce. These foods, if you eat them in their natural state, especially the vegetables, they have so few calories and they are so packed full of nutrients that there's absolutely no concern about gaining weight if you ate too much of them. In fact, what I tell patients who try to lose weight, I say, look, everything that's a vegetable that is not sweet, and that you eat in its natural state, you eat the carrot, you don't just drink the juice. You can have as much as you want. Those are free foods. You could be technically even saying you're fasting or semi-fasting. You're not going to gain weight from that. And I'm going to actually illustrate that for you. So for a raw carrot of medium size, you get 25 calories only. Challenge you to try to eat 250 calories worth of raw carrots. 10 carrots. It's probably not a good idea, but just for illustration purposes, you can imagine how hard it is to go overboard with this type of foods, you know. And you see here different types of fat. Carrots are not at all rich in fat, so you have minimal amounts, but you have generous amount of vitamin A, twice as much as you need in a day, in one carrot, and all kinds of other vitamins, and even a tiny bit of omega-3. Carrots are not the best source of omega-3. If you look up hemp seeds, for example, 3 tablespoons give you 166 calories because, you know, seeds are rich in fat and that gives you calories. But most of that fat, out of 14.5 grams of fat, 11.4 grams are polyunsaturated fats. You get a fair amount of potassium and other minerals and vitamins. But look at the omega-3, the item on the line before the last. 3,007 milligrams in 3 tablespoons of hemp seed. 1,000 milligrams roughly per tablespoon. This is a super rich in omega-3 form of plant food. In any case, I hope this list of rules that I use for my own benefit when I go out shopping for food will be helpful for you. If you have your own list, please share it with me and the others in the comment section below. As always, your questions and comments are welcome. Till next time, you stay healthy and you stay slim, my friend. See you next time.